Chapter 1. When Sawyer and Julius had Simon, they weren't sure if they would ever have any more children. To their delight, 3 more babies followed. In the beginning, they had tried to raise their children in the human realm, as normally as they could. Sawyer understood her children were meant to live in the human realm. The Fae had originally been created to live in the human realm. They had been created to be teachers and protectors of the humans, but the cruelty of man had been unexpected for them. The Fae, with their gentle natures, could not tolerate living among the humans. They had retreated into their own realm and remained there. To this day, rarely did they venture into the human realm, only when absolutely necessary. And yet Gaia, the spirit of Earth, saw fit to create a new bloodline. Sawyer had been created to bring forth this new bloodline. She and all of her descendants would save the humans, where the old Fae had failed. When she had been in the Fae realm and had her full powers sung in by the Fae, she had seen the destruction. She had not completely understood everything she had seen, but she had understood enough. She knew she and her children were meant to save the planet. She had been willing to let Julius go because of this. She knew she and all the future Fae to come would always live in the human realm, so she knew she must raise them in the human realm. As small children, it had seemed easy enough. She and Julius had plenty of help. Marcus and Cassie had stayed on and adored their nieces and nephews. Luna had come to stay, and the children adored their magical grandmother. Simon had come first and was the spitting image of his father. From the time he could crawl, he followed Julius relentlessly. Julius, to his credit, never tired of the boy. He could answer endless questions with a patience Sawyer did not know he possessed. Simon was curious about the world, and his father was up for any adventure the boy wanted to go on. At a very young age, Simon learned to wave doors into existence. Sawyer would find them more often than not returning in so many ways, sometimes covered in sand, other times covered in leaves, but always covered in something. It reminded her of all the places she had gone with Julius, and she never got angry with them, even when Simon would bring home exotic pets from the places they visited. Julius could never deny Simon anything, and so there were times their home looked like a zoo, a baby monkey, a sloth, and once even a tiger. She wanted her children to blend in, but sometimes it seemed impossible. Simon wanted to be strong and fearless like his father, but on the occasion when he would fall and scrape a knee or get a cut on his tiny finger, his little eyes would well up with tears. Julius, the hardened Roman soldier, would scoop him up and kiss away the tears. He would rock him and say soothing words until the pain went away. When Sawyer would see these tender moments between father and son, her heart grew to love her soulmate even more. Paul had come less than a year later. He had been a quiet child from the beginning. He most preferred the company of his uncle Marcus, and their temperaments seemed the same. When he had fussed as a baby, only the gentle, even tone of Marcus's voice could soothe him. As he grew, he showed an aptitude for wanting to learn, and at a very young age, Marcus taught him how to read. By the age of 5, he was reading the dusty textbooks in the library. He would sit among the books for hours with Marcus, asking questions and taking detailed notes of the answers. He held no wonderment in his powers. Instead, he was fascinated in the knowledge of them. He kept detailed notes on their advantages and limitations. Among all of the children, he was the most skilled at using them and controlling them. He was also detailed journals on his siblings' powers and their pets. He would study them all with equal interest. He would study the pets' habits and compare them to general knowledge he had found about them. He soon learned to communicate with them, and this made his studies even more interesting. He once approached Simon about a baby elephant he had brought back. He explained to his brother about elephants and how they were a family-oriented species, and this baby Simon kept longed for its mother. Simon returned the baby immediately. Sawyer was fascinated by Paul, and always smiled watching Marcus with him. Marcus would never have a child, and she knew Paul was held dearest in his heart. At some point, Paul had begun to dress like his uncle. One day she returned home to find her tiny son standing on a stool, and a tailor was measuring him. Marcus was picking fabrics for his suit. She didn't know where she had gotten such a serious child, but was glad Marcus understood him. The twins had come a year after that. Hannah and Harlow were identical except for their hair color. Hannah had the dark auburn of her mother, and Harlow had the white blonde of Cassia. Sawyer was delighted in having daughters. She always had them in matching outfits and would take them to the garden every day. She would watch as their chubby baby fingers would reach for a flower and the silver string would wrap around their hands. When they would lie on their backs, butterflies would come and tickle their toes. When they giggled, the ethereal string would shine so brightly it glowed. Hannah had the same reserved nature as Sawyer, and she was always a bit quieter. Harlow was like Cassia in every way and was bold. Their world had seemed perfectly normal, and Sawyer and Julius congratulated themselves on how well their children blended in. They stopped congratulating themselves when Simon started kindergarten. When Simon had started school, they put him in a public school nearby. Everything was going well until his birthday. They decided to invite his whole class for his party, as would be human tradition, never thinking twice about the entrance to the Fey realm as it was being held outside. Everyone at the party had been distracted by the festivities and didn't notice the little boy who had slipped away. He entered the house and had seen the heavy curtain in the ballroom. Being a curious child, he slipped behind it and into the Fey realm. He wandered around the Fey realm and lost for hours until Mother found him crying by a tree. When she returned him to the party, his clothes were torn and dirty. His eyes were swollen and red from crying. His parents rushed to him, and he told them a fantastical story of where he had been. No one believed him, of course, because he had only been missing for a few minutes in their room. The sight of the ancient woman, though, made them uncomfortable. One by one, the humans made up excuses to leave because of their uneasiness. The party was cut short, and Sawyer and Julius realized they couldn't blend in as easily as they thought they could. The children grew, and each year brought new challenges. Once a child had made Harlow so mad she had accidentally brought down a tornado on the playground. They soon came to realize, as hard as they tried, they would never be normal enough to completely pass in the human realm. So they accepted their uniqueness and worked around it. They homeschooled until the children could understand and control their powers. When they were reintroduced to public school, it was a much easier transition. Paul was sent to a private school for gifted children at a young age. It was in a different state, but he would wave in a door twice a day. Marcus would walk him through and drop him off and pick him up. He was in college before any of his siblings were in high school. Simon had been an amazing athlete and enjoyed his high school years as a star quarterback. He continued to play in college, and while he was always surrounded by adoring girls, he never found one who interested him. Hannah was reserved like her mother and preferred to involve herself in other school activities. She had worked on the yearbook committee and was star of the math club. She dressed conservatively and could often be found with her nose in a romance novel. Harlow was their wild child. She was outgoing and popular and was a cheerleader. She loved shopping and dancing, and Cassia indulged her every whim. Since Cassia looked as young as Harlow, she was always welcome among her friends. Sawyer and Julius agreed that since Harlow was Cassia, they would let her have the freedom to live her life. When they had all left home to go to college, Sawyer thought her heart might break. She soon realized she could still see them every day if she wished. She and Julius began to travel again and spent time alone together for the first time since their children had been born. Life was turning out perfect until the day the mist came for them. Their destiny had finally arrived.